You think you know what we're going to talk about.
But unfortunately, I fell down a damn rabbit hole and I've not gotten out yet.
Knife bros.
I literally Googled Sebastian Stan hands.
But just when you least expect it, we changed the game.
Well, yeah, because like usually in astrology, they would partner up air signs with fire signs.
All right, you can huggle.
Time travel stories and
At the end of the day, only one thing matters. We decide.
Well, we should make it a topic. Unfortunately, I didn't take German in school. I took Spanish and I don't remember any of it.
Three Fates Decide podcast.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Three Fates Decide. I am one of your co-hosts, Liz, and I'm here with my other co-hosts, Mary and Sam.
Hello.
Okay, so this episode we are going to be discussing shocking and surprising celebrity deaths that have happened over the years.
Yeah, I think pretty much everyone that listens to our podcast can distinctly remember at least one or two celebrity deaths that have blown your mind, like you just can't believe that it happened. And obviously when we discussed doing this as a subject, like we just started spouting out names, and it's just like even now when going through this list and I see a name that I completely forgot about, and it's just, again, it just blows my mind.
Yeah, definitely. Several of them. It's like, not necessarily did I forget about them, but it's just reading through the some of the lists that I was looking at. I'm just like, oh yeah. And then it's like you don't necessarily forget about it, but it just kind of gets pushed to the back of your mind because so much of other things in life take over. But then you think, oh yeah, I remember when that happened, and it just brings back like what you remember about said celebrity, what you liked about them, what you didn't like, things like that. And this list kind of brought back almost a little bit of nostalgia for me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Sad nostalgia.
Yeah, it was sad nostalgia. It's hard to watch some of the movies or TV shows that they were in or have been in, knowing that they're gone.
Yeah. I mean, it's both sad and yet there's also like a slight hint of eeriness to it as well, because it's like, you're watching this thing and then you kind of have in the back of your mind like, gosh, they died like, a few weeks or a few months after they filmed this, especially if you happen to be watching like the last thing they completed before.
Or while they're filming. That's even worse.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, in some cases that happened, yeah.
Who is the one that literally just passed away? He's the one that kind of gave me this idea.
Willie Garson.
Oh yeah, Willie Garson.
Yes, Willie Garson. Thank you.
Sex and the City.
Yeah. So that's really where I kind of came up with the idea, because again, like it was just like he was filming Sex and the City not that long ago. He was like in New York filming, and now he's gone. And it's just like it's just shocking. Like how I can't even imagine having to then continue filming and acting like, all is right with the world. Meanwhile, like your friend who you've been acting with for years is gone. Like it's just, yeah.
That one when I heard about it, I couldn't remember who he was at first till I looked, and then I went, oh yeah. But
yeah. Once I saw his face, I was like, oh, yeah. Because like I loved White Collar. That's what I knew him from. I wasn't a big Sex and the City fan.
Yeah,
but
I remember him more from Sex and the City than White Collar, but I do remember him in White Collar too. But yeah.
Mozzie. Oh boy. So we did do some research, and we did look up lists of most shocking celebrity deaths. And, obviously we don't want to, if we wanted to, we could probably make this like a 3-hour episode. But
or longer.
I think or longer, exactly. So pretty much what we're going to do is kind of go through the list, and if there's one that specifically affected us or that we really like remember that was like really, really shocking, we'll get a chance to kind of explain. And, just as a whole thing, if you think of any celebrity deaths that we didn't mention here on this episode, feel free to reach out to us via email or on our Instagram page.
Yes. So I think I'm going to start it off with one that's not kind somewhat near and dear to all of our hearts because we're all huge Marvel nerds, and that would be King T'Challa, Chadwick Boseman. That one, when I found out last year that he had passed, and that he had passed from stage 4 colon cancer, that he had been battling it for 4 years and still able to do such an incredible and chilling job of acting through this pain and through this illness. I was floored when I heard. And it just made me love his acting even more.
Yeah, no, I agree. It was definitely for us as fans, and I think of people of the world that weren't in his inner circle, it was completely out of the blue. 100%. No one knew that this guy was sick.
Yeah.
And, all of a sudden he's gone. And it's, I think the reason why it's just so sad is because we didn't realize what he was dealing with. And you wouldn't know. He had a smile on his face all the time. Like, he put his heart and soul into every part that he played. I mean, he was a very active actor, in all of his roles. And it was just so tremendously sad that, number one, we lost such a great talent. But number two, that he had been dealing with all this behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And, it really was just, so, so sad. And I just remember I saw not too long ago, his brother was on like the news. And he had got, like, it wasn't long after Chadwick passed away that he went and got tested. And like, he was terrified that, because it runs in their family. He was terrified that, and thankfully this, that test had come back clean, and obviously he's going to continue getting tested. But yeah, and I just remember people were making fun of Chadwick like the winter before because he was so skinny, and he looked terrible, and people were like making fun of him. And now, like, again, going back to that social media, like, you don't know what's going on. The man was dying.
Yeah. Well, the man was, not only was he dying, he was going through chemotherapy. And that takes a horrendous toll on your body. Not only does cancer take a horrendous toll, but the chemotherapy is even worse. It's no wonder he was so thin and unwell looking.
Mm-hmm. And have you seen the video of, it was for Infinity War? They did like that huge
Yeah, and he kept
panel,
falling
and he
asleep.
was falling asleep.
Yeah.
Poor guy. Poor
Yeah.
Chadwick.
Because he had just like recently have like chemotherapy like right before that.
Either that, or he had surgeries like in between movies and stuff like that. Like, he had
Yeah.
a couple of surgeries in there too, so he might have been recovering.
Yeah.
And or just, chemotherapy, medicine, something. But yeah, oh, poor guy. Poor guy.
Yeah. I mean, when, it came up in the news that like he passed, like the thing was that I immediately felt really bad for his family because I mean, in my own family, actually, I had a cousin who also passed away from stage 4 colon cancer, and she was living with she was living with me and my parents for like the final half a year before she passed, and I was like, you know what, I feel terrible for his family who very likely knew what was going on, and all they can do is try to help him out and basically just watch him struggle with this because, there's not much you can do, directly for him or anybody really that, is dealing with this. And, you hope for the best, but it's hard to say what could happen with cancer sometimes. And I really felt for them a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. His poor wife. I'm
Yeah.
happy that he was able to marry her beforehand to make sure that she was taken care of.
Yeah.
But
I mean, like, I guess before we move on to the next celebrity, I guess, like, if there's one thing to take away from what happened with him is to remind people out there that there are, not every cancer is like this, but there are many in which there are ways you could try to prevent yourself from dealing with it. And, especially with colon cancer, as like gross feeling as it is, preparing to do, a colonoscopy, you just have to deal with it. Okay. You got to deal with it and just do it because, best case scenario, you went through this uncomfortable thing, okay, the prep work and stuff, and you end up finding out you have nothing weird going on in there, and you're fine for the next few years until you do the exam again. And then worst case scenario, you find something funky, and the doctor will take it out, like pretty much right there, and you'll have to do it again sooner than you would have to do if you came out clean. So, you know, it's really to save your life. It's to save your life and to hopefully save your family a lot of grief later. Is all I gotta say about it.
truth.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So the next that I'll bring up, and we don't have to really go into it, but it's kind of 3 in 1. It's what I call the Glee 3. So you have Corey Monteith, Mark Salling, and Naya Rivera, all 3 members of Glee's cast that over the last couple years have died. Corey died from a drug overdose. Mark Salling committed suicide before going to prison, and Naya drowned, saving her son while they were on a lake. So those 3, I as a Glee fan, were like so surprising. But like I said, we don't have to go too much into it. But yeah, so I call them the Glee 3, which is it's still very sad and crazy how that happens. Like one cast and 3 members are gone.
Yeah.
Kobe Bryant. That
That-
was January of 2020. That was very surprising.
Very much surprising.
Yeah. It was all, and as far as I think, it was like partially human error, partially bad weather, but to be fair, it probably is mostly human error, really, because it's like if, the visibility wasn't very good, then, like, why are you insisting on flying?
Yeah. Yeah, it was like too foggy over the mountain or something. So they crashed into it. Yeah, very, very sad. 8 people were on the helicopter, including his 13-year-old daughter. So, his wife not only lost her husband, but then lost her daughter all on the same day. Very, was not a good start to 2020. And as all of us know, 2020 was absolutely terrible, and that was a terrible way to start it.
Yeah. I'm gonna go the next one that really shocked me was Robin Williams, which we've spoken about before on this channel or on this podcast, but that was just such a shock because I grew up with his movies and I grew up watching him and laughing because he was so funny. But he did have a form of dementia called Lewy body dementia. And he, instead of suffering with that, he chose to commit suicide.
I'll never forget. It was my sister's birthday. that he died on. And I was teaching color guard, which is something that I do. And I was at practice when I looked at my phone and I saw, and I cried. I did. I actually cried. I think that was the first time a celebrity death made me cry, because like, you just,
Yeah.
life was never going to be the same again. Like, Robin Williams was a one of a kind man, actor, comedian, whatever. And yeah, the world lost a huge star with him.
Yeah.
My childhood was officially gone.
Yeah. I mean, it just seemed like very, very strange in a way how somebody who was so full of life and, pretty damn hilarious, would end up making that kind of a decision. But then, understanding what the circumstances was at the time, it kind of gives you like a little bit more understanding and kind of sympathy with the position he found himself in. And, whether you think it was an unfortunate decision or not, it is what it is. He made the decision, and that's what happened,
Yep, he didn't want to lose his mind. And as someone who watched someone disappear with, Alzheimer's, which is a form of dementia, I can't even imagine being aware that you're starting to lose yourself. So I can understand where what he was thinking. I wish it didn't have to happen, obviously, but
Definitely.
yeah, I can't imagine the fear that he had, that he felt like this was his only option.
Yeah. And it was, I'm sure it was a huge fear for him, because this is somebody who has made his living on his quick wit and sharp mind. And it started to betray him. Liz, go ahead. If you do you have any?
Oh, well, actually, one, this was kind of a coincidental thing, but like recently, on the History Channel, there's a series they have called History's Mysteries, and purely by coincidence, the other day they aired an episode where they looked into the death of Bruce Lee, which at the time was very much a shocking thing because the guy was only 32 years old. He was very close to really breaking into, not only international fame, but especially Hollywood fame. Because as, people familiar with him knows, at the time of his death, he had just recently finished filming Enter the Dragon, and they were also preparing to do the sequel movie, which is Game of Death, and suddenly it got announced in the newspapers that Bruce Lee is dead, and everybody was like completely shocked at the time, and nobody could understand how this young guy could suddenly die like this. And of course, over the decades there have been a lot of conspiracy theories about what happened, and that's why it was such an interesting choice of an episode for this series, because one of his brothers was apparently the one who kind of instigated this new reexamination of what happened to his older brother. Um, I'll let you guys in the audience try to look up the episode and watch it for yourself. But by the end of the episode, they did come to some sort of a conclusion, at least, in the minds of like everybody that was looking into it, what they think really happened. And yeah, it was very interesting because not only were they, looking into the different possible theories of what happened, but also for me, especially. It was a bit of a history lesson as to what was going on in Hong Kong in the 70s because by that point my parents were no longer living there, so they had no direct experiences of what it was like, but for me it was very fascinating. I mean, I kind of knew that Hong Kong mobsters had a lot of power at the time, but I didn't really realize like how seriously embedded they were in society. I mean, like pretty much all of the major forms of entertainment and, nightlife, they had their hands in those pies, including the entertainment, the film industry in Hong Kong at the time. So among the many theories was, did he piss off somebody in one of the gangs? And that was definitely looked into. So, but yes, his mysterious, shocking death was definitely something that even now people still talk about.
Yeah. And there's been movies made about it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I'll have to check that out. So you've definitely intrigued me. So
Yeah, it was a really recent episode. Like they just aired it on the 21st. So it was literally like this past week's episode. But yeah, I mean, he was such a huge icon, not just to, people who happen to be fans of kung fu movies, but he was the, representative of Chinese people around the world, really. Like so many people, so many Chinese people really idolized him because he was the guy that showed that, we're not just some, we're not like weaklings and we're not, helpless people. We are capable of being, warriors and determined people, really. And that's why he was so loved, in the general, Chinese community. And it was shocking for everybody, not just because of the fact he was so young, but like how can our hero, how can our idol suddenly die like this? It's hard to imagine at the time, like how terrible it must have been for a lot of people who really loved the guy,
yeah. The next one I have is Paul Walker, who is known for the Fast and the Furious movies, and ironically, though sadly, actually died while driving. He was a passenger with a friend, and it seemed like they were going ridiculously fast and hit a pole, and the car went up in flames, and both Paul and his friend were killed. He was only 40, and I do believe I did hear or see somewhere that he didn't die at impact. He died as a result of the fire, so which is even more horrendous.
Yeah.
My hope is that he was unconscious and had no idea. But, and people were standing there, couldn't get to him watching this happen. And I just remember being completely shocked. Completely shocked. And I think not long after on like National Geographic or whatever, it was like Shark Week, and he was on one of the shows for Shark Week because he like loved sharks or whatever. And it was like not long after his death. It was crazy.
Yeah. You said for you, Robin Williams is one that you cried at. I cried at Paul Walker's death when I found out.
Yeah.
This is one of two on the list for me that I really, well, actually, no, I lied. Three. There was three on this list that I cried when I found out that they had passed. Paul Walker is one of them because I grew up watching Paul, basically. It's like, I love the Fast and Furious movies. Even though I know nothing about cars, I loved it. And I'm just like, to find out that he was gone, it's just like, I sat and cried.
Oh.
That was one of my first ones that I really sat and cried. And what I found out was the song "See You Again" was written in tribute to him by Wiz Khalifa. or Wiz
Mhm.
Khalifa and Charlie Puth, the song "See You Again," which was released as part of the soundtrack for the Furious 7, was written in tribute to Paul.
Oh, that's nice.
So
Yeah.
now I know why that song makes me cry every single time I hear it anyway.
You didn't even know, and now you know.
No, exactly. It's like, gee, I wonder why this song makes me cry every time. But then again, I kind of also attributed it to my grandfather who passed away a very, very long time ago.
All those types of songs make me cry.
Yeah, I'm a little too sensitive.
No, I'm with you.
Another one that really surprised me was the iconic Whitney Houston.
Yeah.
I mean, there has never been another Whitney, and there never will be. She was an icon. Whether you liked her music or not, you know her. You know her voice.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, that was very sad.
Mhm.
And what I think kills me even more is that her daughter died the same way.
Yeah.
Found in the bathtub,
Mhm.
like drug overdose, like whatever. I
Yeah.
think there's something fishy about her daughter's death, but we're not going to get into that right now. But it's
Right.
just, so like I feel like that adds on to the sadness
Mhm.
of Whitney. But yeah, no, that one floored me. I couldn't believe it when that was announced.
Yeah.
That was nuts. And I can't even
Yeah.
believe it's been that long. It's been
I
almost 10 years.
I
Yeah.
know.
I mean, yeah. Yeah. I mean, it when they said she died and then they explained, and they came out like she was, it was a drug overdose. It was like kind of shocking to me because I had no idea she had a drug problem, really. I mean, granted, I'm not like a diehard fan who like followed her, religiously or anything. So I wasn't really paying attention up to that point, what may or may not have been going on
Yeah.
with her. But I had no idea that she had like a really long time, a drug problem for that long, really. Which is what made the whole thing with her daughter even sadder because it's almost
Mhm.
like, well, look at her parents then. Her parents are both, we're both drug addicts. And it's like,
Yeah.
how could this poor kid avoid getting into that situation when she has two parents that are like that too? And,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, I mean, I knew that she had a problem obviously when she was with Bobby.
Yeah. That's I knew she had the problem. I didn't realize it was still
It was
ongoing.
still yeah, I didn't realize either
Yeah.
she slipped back in or it never stopped or whatever. I
Yeah.
remember when I was in college, I was listening to the radio and they were, and as sad as it is, they were making fun of her because she had tried to sing and she like lost her voice. Her voice was gone from like all the drugs and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But I just didn't realize that she was still having an issue.
Yeah.
But and her funeral, I actually watched. I was working that Saturday, and I watched from my computer and saw like Kevin Costner get up and say his eulogy. So
Mm.
I like paid attention. I mean, she
Mhm.
is buried in my state of New Jersey. Um, actually in the town where my brother lives, so I can actually go visit her uh her headstone. I can take a picture of it for you guys. I won't do that. But
Please
yeah.
don't.
So
Like,
I really
could
won't do
please
that.
don't.
That's just a bad omen. But
Yeah, no. Yeah. We don't
oh
need
boy.
bad juju here. No bad juju
No.
here.
No. But that was a sad day,
Yes.
month, year.
That the it was a very shocking. I mean, like you said, Sam, I knew she'd had the problem. I didn't realize that she either she never got over it or she relapsed. I'm not real sure about that. But due to the drug problem, it caused her to have heart disease, which caused her to drown, which was her official cause of death was accidental drowning due to heart disease and cocaine use.
Keeping up with, I guess, sad musicians, Michael Jackson
Oh, yes.
was very surprising. Again, another one that I remember.
Mhm.
He was
Yeah.
only 50.
Yes.
Died of cardiac arrest. And the interesting thing was that his physician then was tried and I believe found guilty of manslaughter
Yes. And sentenced
for
4 years.
for giving him propofol,
Mhm.
which they determined was one of the things that caused the cardiac arrest.
Yeah.
That was kind of like a long process. Which I mean, listen, you're a doctor. I don't care how much money he's giving you to give him meds. You took an oath. You needed to be the one to say no.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily feel bad for the doctor for getting in trouble, but
Right. I mean, the
yeah, that was
doctors
nuts.
do take the Hippocratic Oath, which states above all else, do no harm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, this doctor did harm.
Oh yes, he did. And I don't know if you guys remember, and we don't have to really go into it much, but someone famous died on the same day as Michael Jackson. Do you remember who it was?
Oh, Farrah Fawcett.
Yep. I just remember I felt so bad because people had found out about her first. She had cancer.
Mhm.
And, so everyone was talking about her. And then all of a sudden, the news came out about Michael Jackson, and everyone forgot about poor Farrah Fawcett. So that's the one thing I remember about her.
Yeah.
But yeah, she was only 62. She died of anal cancer, which doesn't sound very pleasant.
No.
Another one, Heath Ledger.
That's the second one I cried about when I found out.
I can still see them taking the body bag out of the apartment.
Yeah.
Like that was, and his daughter who looks exactly like him. Like every time I see her, I'm like, oh, you are your father. Like it's uncanny.
Yeah.
But
He's
yeah,
a spitting image of him.
yeah, his is a sad story.
Yeah.
And I guess we'll never really know everything, but I think what people have kind of figured out was he had a hard time kind of getting out of the mindset of the Joker
Mm-hmm.
from The Dark Knight. And so he started taking medicine to help him sleep, mix that with alcohol, and there you go. But yeah, no, that was extremely sad, especially like if you have not seen The Dark Knight, which I don't know how you haven't, but if you haven't seen him as the Joker, definitely I think the best Joker ever. Different than Jack Nicholson, I know. Jack Nicholson is his own brand of Joker, but
Yes.
Heath Ledger is definitely he was amazing
He
as
was.
Joker. And if it is true that it did kind of lead, like I feel terrible about that, but yeah, that was just sad. And then wasn't one of the Olsen twins like involved because she was like seeing him or something? Does anyone remember that?
No, she was one that his housekeeper found him and she called one of the Olsen twins. I can't remember which one. I think it was Mary Kate.
I think so too.
Please do not take this as fact. This is just what I've heard and I've read. And she's the one who called 911. I don't necessarily think he was seeing her because I was pretty sure at the time wasn't he still with Michelle Williams or had they just
No,
recently
they
broken
had
up?
divorced. Yeah, no, they had divorced.
Okay. I couldn't remember.
He had been hanging out with, I guess, whichever Olsen twin it was. I don't remember.
Yeah, Mary Kate.
Yeah.
It was Mary Kate.
I just remember being like, what the heck is she? How is she involved?
Yeah.
I don't understand, but I guess he had been with her or something that the housekeeper thought she would be the first person to reach out to. So
I maybe I don't really know. But getting onto the third person on this list that I cried over when I heard about their death, and actually the first person I cried over when I heard about their death was Steve Irwin.
oh yeah,
That one
God.
absolutely floored me, and I remember watching. And the thing of it is that I found out I was actually watching a rerun of The Crocodile Hunter, one of his shows, one of the episodes of that, and then I found out then I came across that he had died, and I just cried. I just sat and cried.
Yeah, I used to watch it with my dad,
Mhm.
and my dad died I think a year before he did. But my dad
Yeah.
always said like he could see Steve Irwin being so happy if he died via a crocodile, because that was
Mhm.
his love, like if he was doing what he loved, he would have, died a happy man or whatever.
Yeah.
And obviously it wasn't a crocodile, it was actually a stingray, which they are actually very docile animals. It was a series of unfortunate events that the stinger just happened to go in the worst possible spot and got his heart. And that's unfortunately why he didn't make it. If it had been a couple of inches off, he would probably still be here today, which is so sad. So sad.
Yeah. Although what I actually read that I don't know if this is true or not, but what I read was they actually took it out. He might have survived if they had left the barb in place because it was acting as a
Yeah, he bled to death
yeah.
basically.
Yeah, because they took instead of leaving, because I mean, which is an automatic reaction, it really is. You see something, you see it, you pull it out, But if they had left it, if they'd had the correct medical training, they would have left that in place and tried to put pressure on it and tried to get him to the hospital. He may have had a chance of surviving. But unfortunately, as we all know, that is not what happened.
But Brittany Murphy,
Yes, that was pretty
that was
shocking.
yeah, she was only 32. Died of cardiac arrest. They don't know
Due to
what
pneumonia.
is that what it was? And then her husband died like a year later or something like that.
4 months, I think
Same
it was.
way.
Yeah, like 4
Yeah,
or
or
5
a
months
couple of
later.
months.
It was really, really close.
Yeah. I just remember when I was in school and I was taking like a CPR class or whatever, they used her, which you can find on, as sad as it is, find online the 911 call from when she collapsed. And they use that actually as an example of what to do when you're doing CPR because they were counting out loud, they were doing whatever, and so like I heard it like 5 or 6 times. It's so eerie, but you can find it on my YouTube, which kills me. But yeah, that was a shock, absolute shock. Yeah, she had been sick. I do remember that now that you say that it was pneumonia, but she died of cardiac arrest at 32. I mean, Jesus.
Yeah. Well, I think she had a lethal dose of many, many drugs in her system trying to combat the pneumonia, which led to the cardiac arrest.
Okay.
Yeah. Like a lot of cold medicines, Tylenol. And if you take too much Tylenol, really bad for you.
I kind of wonder if she was like self-medicating or if she was like actually seeing anybody at the time.
I think it was a lot of self-medication because most of it was over the counter.
Yeah, it
If
sounds
not all
like
of it, I think might have been over the counter drugs.
right, because it does sound like it. Yeah.
Another one that I remember this one because I just watched the movie that she had done was Aaliyah back in 2001.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was sad. That was really sad.
Mm-hmm.
I am terrified of small planes, and I think it's because of the amount of celebrities that have died in small planes.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, when things like that happens, it kind of makes you realize that, life is, kind of strange in a way, like at any time, you could be like crossing the street and then like, an out of control car or a drunk driver could hit you, out of nowhere. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's like life in a way is both kind of strange and at times random. It seems like, you know, when something could happen, tomorrow, next week, 5 years from now, 20 years from now. I mean, you just don't know.
One that got me, he passed away right before my dad actually, was John Ritter. He's one of the ones that actually was filming at the time of his death. It was 8 Simple Rules, and he wasn't feeling well and went to his trailer and collapsed. And it turned out he had like a aortic aneurysm out of nowhere. Like it
Yeah.
was like a rupture of the aorta, and he was across the street from the hospital and didn't make it. So if you want to know how important your arteries are, people, especially that one, that's the most because it's connected to the heart.
Mm-hmm.
He was across the street from the hospital and didn't make it. So that one shocked. And then of course I watched the episodes where they had to unfortunately kill off his character, and I just sobbed.
Yeah.
Like you
I know,
just saw, you knew the emotion on with those actors. That was real.
Yeah. Yeah. That's I can't watch it. I refuse to watch 8 Simple Rules because of that. Especially those
Ugh.
episodes. I can't watch them.
Oh God.
Because
It's
I'm just
just
like, no, it's too emotional.
Yeah. I feel bad for like, like the cast. I mean, it's like it's like for them they must have just been filming, their scenes with them and then this happened like right after it, right after
Yeah.
that and now you have to like mentally and emotionally grasp that, your friend, your coworker is gone like right there then. It must have been a very strange feeling as well, So,
There's so many. So many. As I'm going through this, we talked about Aaliyah, but Lisa Left Eye Lopez, who was one of the
Yeah.
members of the R&B girl group TLC.
Yeah.
She was in a car accident. JFK Jr., who's the son of the U.S. President John F. Kennedy. He's John F. Kennedy Jr.
Yeah.
Him, his wife, and his sister-in-law all died in a small airplane. Basically, don't get in a small airplane, people, or cars. Phil Hartman, do you remember that one?
yeah.
Yeah, I do. I don't remember the details, but I remember hearing about it and wow.
Yeah, so Phil Hartman was a comedian actor. Hilarious. And his
Yeah.
wife killed him, shot him, and then committed suicide that night. Yeah.
Right. I remember that now.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
crazy.
That was
He was in like old like SNL
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah, that was nuts. A lot of comedians and actors, I know we talked about a couple that, died from overdoses, like Chris Farley, who was another comedian.
John Candy.
John Candy, yes.
Yeah.
Uncle Buck. John Candy will always be Uncle Buck.
Yeah. Jonathan Brandis,
Yes.
who we actually kind of mentioned last week, who's on Sequest. He apparently drank himself to death. Or no, he committed suicide. I'm
He
sorry.
committed suicide.
Yes.
I think he hung himself, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
I think.
A couple of people have been murdered. You have Tupac. You have Biggie Smalls.
Yeah.
Selena.
Yeah.
Though we can't talk about shocking celebrity deaths and not talk about one of the biggest shocking celebrity deaths ever that changed the way the paparazzi are now allowed to deal with celebrity photos. And that would be the iconic Princess Diana.
I remember that.
I do.
Yeah.
it makes me cry now to think about it, but at the time I wasn't quite. I mean, I was old enough, but it didn't really register
Yeah.
for me the way some of the other ones that I said made me cry on this one.
Yeah, now like older, I
Yeah.
not appreciate, but I understand her death now, especially,
Yes.
growing up watching her sons grow up. And honestly, I think a lot of the issues that Harry is having now in terms of leaving the royal family and all that stuff, I think it's all due to like PTSD from losing his mom in such a horrific way. Such a horrific way. If no one knows, she was chased by paparazzi in Paris and they crashed in the tunnel and she was alive and the paparazzi, instead of helping her, were taking pictures
Yeah.
of her as she was begging for help. She did not survive, obviously, because she's on our
Unfortunately.
list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's and after her death is when they made a lot of changes to the way paparazzi were allowed to be around celebrities in a way. Now as we know, the celebrities actually will call the paparazzi to have the photos taken when they need it.
Yes. I mean, there are still some
That are
that go after them, like we
Yeah.
know with the whole Britney Spears situation
right.
and all that. So, and I've seen, unfortunately, like videos and stuff of like in New York, like them hounding celebrities and not taking no for an answer. But yes, for the most part, most pat pictures nowadays are set up so that it's in a safe environment so that no one gets hurt.
Yeah.
But there are still some of those craziness. Yeah, that was huge. That was huge. Yeah, I remember that. I was actually on vacation, and it's back when we actually used to go to church. We don't do that anymore. But I came home from church, and my dad didn't go. And when we walked in, the first thing he said was that Princess Diana died. And I just remember hearing my mom go, "What?" Like, it was just shocking.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we know we missed a lot of celebrities. Obviously, we cannot go through everybody. As we mentioned, we could be here
For
for a
hours.
week.
Though I do have one more that I think a lot of people will somewhat remember or has heard about because they recently just had a movie about his life, and that is Freddie Mercury, the lead singer of
Yes.
Queen.
Yes.
Yep.
He passed away at the age of 45 of AIDS.
Yeah. And what was shocking about that was people didn't know he was gay at the
Right.
time.
Right.
Of course, now you look at everything and you go, "Really?
It's like, how do you not know?
You
Yeah.
didn't know?" Because let
Pretty
me tell
much.
you something. I could tell you.
Yeah, definitely. But
But no, it was
Yeah.
very, very
Yeah.
sad.
His was a pretty shocking death for a lot of people because he literally came out and said he had AIDS and died the next day.
Yeah. And I think the reason why he just came out with it was he wanted to tell his fans before he died.
Right.
He loved his fans, loved them.
He did.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So if you know of anyone that we missed, and again, we know we missed a lot, but if you can think of anyone maybe we didn't think of, reach out to us. We do have an email that we've been promoting, and that's 3fatesdecide, all written out, at gmail.com. And you can email us with either, people we forgot, or what you think of the show, or maybe topics that you want us to cover in the future. Reach out to us, let us know what you think.
Yes. We would appreciate any meaningful interactions you wish to have with us. Because, hey, we know you guys are out there listening, but, it would be nice to have a conversation with you guys, too.
Yes, let us know what you think. Just is there anything you think we could change or we could do better or things that you really enjoy that we talk about or that we do? let us know, because we want to, this is why we do this. One, we do it because we're loving doing it and having fun. And two, we want to interact with the people that listen to us, our quote unquote fans.
Yes, yes. Which also brings us to our Instagram that we are slowly putting together.
Yes.
But it is up. I think I've posted 2 things on there. But
Yeah.
again, that is 3 Fates Decide, all spelled out. And we are on Instagram, and comment, DM us, whatever, reach out to us. We want to hear from you, the fans, the listeners,
Yes.
the haters, everyone. No, not the haters. You can give constructive criticism, and we'll
Yeah.
leave it at that.
Yeah. Thanks for listening, everyone. Catch us next time.
And see what we're going to talk about.
Because the 3 Fates decide.